Hi! I think I've told you guys before about how I like to set myself a goal of watching 100 films every year. Now I do count rewatches, but only if I haven't already rewatched them in the same year. I thought it would be fun to do a sort of little roundup of my favourite 10 films I watched this year that were either entirely new to me or still newish. Now the first film on this list is Short Term 12. I'm not entirely sure whether this is an indie film, but it definitely feels like it. And it's about two people who work in a group home for at-risk teens. So like kids who have been placed out of their parents' house. The two people that work there are actually a couple. The sort of main character is played by Brie Larson, who is also the main character in Room, which I saw quite recently. But what I really liked about this film is that it felt super realistic. It was funny, it was sad, but it was just a lovely film to watch. The one weird thing about it is that the main character at some point is wearing this floral dress from Urban Outfitters, which I bought in New York a couple of years ago and I've never seen anyone wear it, and it's one of my favorites. And she wears it in this film and it just completely took me out of the story. But this is a really good film. It came out in 2013. I can definitely recommend it, which is basically the case for all the films in this video. The second one is Hysteria, which I have actually seen 1 or 2 times before. I just love it so much. It has Maggie Gyllenhaal, Hugh Dancy, and Felicity Jones, and is basically about the invention of the vibrator in Victorian times. It includes some of my favorite things, such as Victorian medicine and feminism. It's a film that really goes from being really funny to like tackling some quite serious issues and then going back to really funny. And I think this is one that I'll definitely be re-watching loads. Number 3, by the way, this is in no particular order, is Far From the Madding Crowd. As you guys might know, I went on a sort of tour of all the film locations of Far From the Madding Crowd. It stars Carey Mulligan, it's set in Dorset, it's based on the novel by Thomas Hardy. All the footage is beautiful, the soundtrack is gorgeous. It is about a young woman called Bathsheba who rejects an offer of marriage and then takes on the task of running a farm. While this is happening, she encounters 3 different suitors and she has to figure out what to do with her life, and she's in quite a difficult position. Again, set in sort of Victorian times, and it was just such a really gorgeous film. Then there is Mad Max Fury Road, which I saw at the cinema, and again also has some of my favorite things. I actually really loved Waterworld. I actually haven't seen this film since I went to the cinema, and I might have to give it a rewatch. I haven't seen the old ones either. I don't know if they are as good, but I might give them a go. Plot is obviously a little bit hard to explain, but I'll be putting trailers to all these films in the description, so if you want more, check that out. Then there was Brooklyn, which I also saw at the cinema and also did a video about. It stars Saoirse Ronan, one of my all-time faves. It's about an Irish girl called Ailish who moves to Brooklyn in New York in the 1950s, and it's about being homesick and figuring out where you belong and what makes a home, and it was gorgeous. I saw it in cinemas twice and just couldn't recommend it anymore, really. This one is a bit of a tearjerker. The next one is a Dutch film that I actually watched on what I think was English Netflix. You will probably be able to find this with English subtitles if you don't speak Dutch, but it is called Gelukkige Huisvrouw, or The Happy Housewife, which I thought was going to be a comedy, and I didn't watch the trailer. It is not a comedy. It stars actress Carice van Houten, who you might recognize from Game of Thrones. She plays the Red Lady, and she's just in everything. It's about like a happy young couple, and they have a baby, and she just has to go through this horrible birth, and after that she becomes really depressed and really confused, and she actually starts to try and like get rid of the baby, and sometimes she won't remember what she's done, and people around her just keep going, oh, you should be so happy, you've got this lovely baby. It's quite intense, but if that sounds like something you'd like, you can probably look it up online. The next one is Effie Grey, which I actually saw loads of posters of on the tube and it looked freaking cool. Never got around to watching it, then randomly picked up a DVD and finally watched it. It stars Dakota Fanning, Tom Sturridge, and Emma Thompson. Again, set in Victorian England, which is just, you know, one of my favorites. It's about a girl played by Dakota Fanning who gets married to an art critic she thinks is going to bring her happiness, and she moves in with him, but he still lives with his parents. Basically, she thinks it will be the start of her running a household, but instead his mom just takes over everything. Also, he doesn't want to sleep with her or spend any time with her. She is sort of slowly withering away, and then this other man who is the protege of her husband comes into her life. It's not sort of the most exciting film I watched this year, but I did enjoy it quite a lot. Okay, 3 more left. Next is The Martian. No surprise, I don't think I have to say a lot about this. This was just really fun and exciting. Film set in space. Loved the book. loved the film. I'm gonna leave it at that. Then I watched About Time on Netflix, which is something that a lot of you guys have recommended to me, because I went to Don Lenoir, which is that restaurant in London where you're in the complete dark while having dinner, and they go there in the film. The main characters are played by Rachel McAdams and Donald Gleason, and the story starts out with Tim being told by his father, who is played by Bill Nighy, that all the men in his family have this special power where they can travel through time, but they can't really change history. And it's about how he deals with this and uses it to his advantage and disadvantage in the rest of his life and the relationship with this new girl he meets. I cried a lot of times while watching this, but it's really lovely, and I feel like this is one of those films that if you're just like in by yourself on a cold winter's night and just feel like having a good cry, then this is the one to watch. And then finally, the film that might be my favourite film that I watched this year, The Lobster. And I saw it at the cinema and I sort of knew what it was going to be about, but it completely caught me off guard. Oh my god, it is so good. It's basically set in this weird futuristic world where if you don't have a love interest, if you don't have a partner, you have 45 days to find one. So there's these hotels and this guy has to go into his hotel and everything's sort of facilitated towards finding a partner. Everyone wears the same clothes, they set up these like galas and little events that people can go to, and if you don't find a partner within 45 days, you get turned into an animal. And the main character has decided that if he doesn't find a partner, he will be turned into a lobster. Now, this film is absolutely insane. There's all these crazy scenarios, but because the delivery of the lines and the way that the film is paced is really deadpan, you sort of just take it all in and you go, yep, that makes sense, I guess. It's funny, it's quite bloody and a bit violent. So if you only want to watch one of the 10 I talked about, please make it that one. I have a running list of stuff I want to watch. If you have any recommendations for me, especially if they're based on the ones that I liked this year, please let me know, and I would also love to hear what your absolute favourite film was that you watched this year. I will talk to you guys later. Doei!